First slide. All right. This is the talk, people. This comes from my personal experience. I have made this mistake for most of my career. I hope some of you watching this video are faring better. Some I know from the group are already web or mobile engineers. So I hope to give you um, some points that you can use with your backend friends and with your engineering managers and get them on your side. Um, Somebody says engineering leaders, we are not giving due share of our attention to our mobile engineering teams. Okay. Now let me first talk about why mobile engineering is important. Uh, before we do that, I want to ask a quick question. Give me a response on the chat. How many of you think mobile app development is important for your company? Say a yes in the chat if you're watching this live. If you catch the video once it is on YouTube or something, you need not respond. Okay, I see Somnath. Oh man, this is scrolling too fast for me. Ankit, you don't qualify, man. You are a mobile EM. Shubham, Brajesh. Yeah, looks like a lot of people. So, like, I think most of us agree that mobile development is important, and many of us work for mobile first companies. Some are with companies like Uber or Ola that are mobile only, right? Um, Even our shoe companies, Nike, and coffee companies, Starbucks, they have apps today, right? So I personally went through the list of 100 Indian unicorns and counted how many of them had an app on Play Store. Since we have people here, uh, how many of them out of 100 do you think would have um, an app on Play Store? Write your guesses. 80. Brajesh is at 80. Deepak is 90. Manik 90 plus. Yeah. Sai Tejas played it safe. Yeah, I think this 90 plus is good. And you guys are right. 92 of them had one or more apps on the Play Store. Some of them had multiple. I've gone through multiple surveys and a lot of studies. They tell us that smartphone users are spending upwards of 4 hours per day on mobile apps. Okay, there are more than 3 billion Android users, another billion iPhone users. And when we look at India, we know how India simply leapfrog desktops. Like my dad has never used a desktop, but he talks to Google on his Android phone for cricket scores on a daily basis. Like he has never used a desktop and uses a mobile, a smartphone on a daily basis. And there are many of us like this, right? Our mobile apps are how our customers experience all the cool products and tech innovations that we are doing, right? But but our engineering leaders, including myself, we aren't contributing to mobile code or design and architecture. It's a tall claim, but I'm hoping most of you would agree. If you are an engineering leader, an engineering manager, a VP, director, CTO, and you do coding, code reviews, or design reviews for your team, give me a yes on the chat. Ankit, you qualify. Oh man, okay. So we have plenty of engineering leaders who are doing at least one of these. Um, okay, Shiva also qualifies. Very nice. Okay, so I'll keep this slide up. Uh, when I tell my engineering counterparts, VP, CTO friends that hey, you should be helping your mobile teams with design and code and whatnot. They're like, hey, VPs and CTOs in our company don't code. But depending on your team size and your org structure, your EMs, your VPs, your CTOs would be either coding actively if you have a small team. Um, you would be And I'm saying, you would continue to manage people, but on the engineering side, you would, for slightly bigger team, you'd probably only code small bugs and features. For slightly bigger size, you'd probably code outside sprint and say, hey, I'll just do POCs. Even in the largest possible teams, you'd still do a whole lot of design reviews for large features, even if it is not regular. It's not like just because we have become engineering leaders and engineering managers, engineering still comes first. So we don't stop doing tech, right? It's not like we suddenly become non-techie managers as soon as we become engineering leaders. So we are doing something. Okay, and yeah, Shiva seems to not get access to code repos, but uh, most of us are doing this. Now my claim, and Shiva can change the slide there, is that most of us do this for backend, and some of us may do this for web now, but very few of us contribute to mobile engineering. And I don't have the right numbers. My sample set tells me, like, I would say only 2 out of 100 people that I have talked to do some mobile and can understand mobile. But it's a small sample set, and that's why I'm sticking to most and very few. But the claim is engineering leaders continue to do back-end design reviews, but they don't contribute to uh, front end. And there are many reasons for this. The biggest one is iPhone was released in 2007, Android came out in 2008. Until 2008, Apple did not allow third-party apps at all. Right? So much of serious, complex mobile engineering started only after smartphones became popular, right? So we don't see many VPs with 20 years of experience who started their career as an Android developer or an iOS developer, because the whole smartphone ecosystem is just 14 years old. I'm discounting everybody who did Symbian and J2ME and Windows CE. Sorry about that, but most of you would agree that this mobile revolution started in 2007 8. It's a relatively new thing. Mobile apps getting more complex, right? And of course, colleges are not paying attention to mobile at all, or anything UI. Uh, till 5 to 7 years ago, I think there was a salary difference between front end and back end developers. There are lots of reasons why we don't see uh, leaders with mobile chops. Right? Companies have always needed more back-end engineers, and so most of the role models, that's engineering leaders and architects, are continue to be from back-end. Right? Now, thankfully, I've started bumping into head of mobile engineering, director of mobile engineering, and all sorts of people in last few years. So I know that the industry is correcting itself. We can do better. Um, Now, how does a typical engineering leader, that is engineering manager, an engineering a director of engineering look like, right? They would hopefully be excellent in coding, code reviews, design. I'm sure they can estimate complex projects well. They can design complex backend services, database schemas, right? They can design distributed systems, uh, caching, queues. I'm assuming they are familiar with one or more frameworks, backend frameworks, languages, databases. They probably have 10, probably 20 years of experience, but they are still mostly a backend engineer, right? So our engineering leaders have not worked on mobile themselves. They were never hands-on on mobile. It's a bit of weak spot for all of us. That means we also don't keep up with changing trends. Uh, and I'm trying to do this for React Native for some time. It's not easy. In some cases, it's so bad that we basically confuse mobile flows that of a website. And a lot of people I've interacted with on mobile side tell me, hey, web and mobile are different technologies, and at least our engineering managers and at least our VP and CTO should understand this part. Right? Now, if it is so bad. How do we still manage to run our mobile apps? Okay. So here is a question for all of you. If you are an engineering leader, an engineering manager from backend, and you have a mobile app team, tell me how are you running this team? Uh, put your responses in the chat. Mobile is important. My claim is a lot of engineering leaders are from backend, and if that's the case, but we still have mobile apps team, uh, how are you running your teams? Who is responsible for day-to-day design? Okay, leveraging mobile leads for okay, good strong leaders in mobile team. Yeah, so on makes sense. Run on team leads for dev team. Yeah, you guys are right. I mean, we have a senior engineer who leads the mobile team, right? Frameworks, release engineering, even coding guidelines are defined by these senior mobile engineers, and our CTOs, VP engineering don't really play a role in at least this side of the business. So mobile is important. Most of us are backend engineers. Managed to run apps with help of some engineers. Thankfully, we managed to hire some good ones, right? Now, since we are not involved in mobile engineering, and a lot of you said that, hey, you guys still code and you guys do code, design, architecture. Um, Not being involved causes many issues. Okay, so backend engineers, those teams, they get our inputs in their processes, designs, right? Mobile team software best practices lag behind. We are the absentee leader for our mobile team. Okay, since we don't understand mobile capabilities and best practices, we end up with a lot of debt on mobile apps. This could be APIs, could be business logic, could be tight coupling between backend services, mobile. For mobile first companies, I've often seen that their apps become the product delivery bottleneck. And that's also the area where the team lacks technical expertise. You have somebody who's, in a way, punching way above their weight. Right? We create buggy software, and invariably confidence on mobile team reduces. Right? A friend reviewed these slides and made a point. Every time mobile gets a serious look is when something has gone wrong. Right? Automated testing, unit test, type of best practices often take a back seat because we are not pushing this culture for that team. We're still doing it for backend. A friend said, my backend has the god level automation, but our apps are being tested manually, and that is true for a lot of us. I'm sure there are people who are exceptions and who have done a good job at both the places. We try to move some logic, business logic to backend, and still keep wondering, okay, why writing UI is so difficult for our teams? Okay. So I wrote a tweet recently about myths around mobile app development, and I think I have probably never received so many responses for my tweet. It touched a nerve, right? And I won't go through all of them, but it'll be good if some of you are mobile developers, some of you manage mobile developers. If you can write down your favorite myth around mobile development, apart from these four, it'll be good. The chat is open. I'll give you a hint. And I made this mistake myself. Um, yeah, oh, Saurabh, this is the first comment that I was going to make. A lot of us, including myself, believe that Android and iOS features should take the same amount of time. How are they different? But it's there. Yeah, if we develop a feature today, Hirak made a good point. Nobody takes care of adoption time, right? If we develop a feature today, all our customers can see the change tomorrow. That's a big myth. And Saurabh says code push. Yeah, code push works. Please don't use it as always, Saurabh. I've also heard how different could it be from backend? It's just code, right? Or or something as simple as Databases are used for backend engineers only and useful for backend engineers only. It's just plain and simple wrong. And there are something as simple as this. It's okay, let's release it. If something breaks, we'll just roll it back. How would you roll it back? There is no rollback. Yeah, Deepak says just add an SDK here. Yeah, I've heard this one. A lot of myths. And if you have heard any of these, give me a yes in the chat. It's just consuming through backend APIs, REST API, and showing UI on the screen. Good point, Prim. Yeah, I think I've heard this one too. So, what's the saddest part? Some of these things, these myths that I just said and that you wrote, are not, these statements are not made by business or product teams. They're said by backend engineers. I have said it. And other engineering leaders who, as I described, were backend engineers. That's really sad. We are simply shortchanging and underserving a critical, in some way, most important part of our engineering organization because we haven't taken time to understand an engineering stack. Right? And I've thought about why I didn't learn mobile earlier. And I'm sure everybody has their own story. I'm just imposing my autobiography on you guys. So here's I could think about. Um, Mobile was not important for my company back in the day, and even today, many B2B products don't need mobile. Shiva said, "Hey, they're now B2B products are launching mobile finally." And I thought mobile wasn't that complex. I was wrong. uh, I thought it's just UI, and my design sense is bad. So I thought I wouldn't be good at it. So let somebody else do this who is passionate and better at it. There are too many third-party dependency. Anybody who has done a release with Google or Apple would know, and a lot of fixed frameworks that people have to work with. And of course, there is a school of thought uh, from my favorite author, Douglas Adams, who says anything that you have learned or that came out after you were 35, um, we don't get it. If you relate to any of this, mobile is not important for your company, mobile isn't that complex, it's UI, my design sense is bad, or there's just too much rigid third party dependency, give me a yes in the chat. OS, Ankit, all right. This is not moving as fast. Saurav, Pratul. Okay, how much do I agree with you, Jitin? Yeah, Pratul, you should, man. Okay, Piyush says no. I want to talk to Piyush later. Thank you, Piyush. Unless you want to write out why you didn't learn mobile, which is different from any of these. Of course, it's not exhaustive. So my claim is mobile development is not trivial, and that is why leadership is required for that team. Okay? And the good part is you can still help here. You can apply a lot of your systems knowledge, your engineering knowledge to help your mobile teams. You'd probably still hear, hey, this is not same as backend. That's okay. It's not that hard. Basically, it's an engineering problem that you need to solve. And as engineers, you're already good at it. Remember, engineering managers, engineering come first. Now, let's look at one problem: app rollout. Right? A lot of people mentioned adoption and how quickly our users will see, our customers will see something that we wrote. Or there's a good quote from Douglas Adams. I would ask you to um, go through this. I don't necessarily endorse it, but there is, at least for some of us, there is some truth here. Okay, let's look at app rollout. Okay. Sure, there is Apple and Google involved, uh, But we have done canary deployments and those rollouts on backend for years. It's the same principle. That is, any new change you roll out to a small percentage of your users, see that nothing is broken. If it is nothing is broken, nothing is crashing, then you roll out to a larger number of customers. It's not new, right? There are a lot of other common problems. I have listed three here: app rollout, network failures. Seriously, people are telling you that backend engineers, backend leaders don't understand network failures and retries. Sure, mobile has more of them. You're on mobile, you are not on Wi-Fi all the time. So the network failures and retries and exponential backups are more important for mobile than they were for backend. But I'm sure as backend engineers, you do retries all the time. Configurations. All of our services have configurations. I was looking at some of my services here, and single service or single country has upwards of 200 plus configurations that we manage on a regular basis. A remote configuration is essentially an extension of that. You have databases, local storage, you have L1, L2 cache, you have multi-threading, and you can contribute to many of them, right? Like, you would hear about this app startup time optimization a whole lot from your mobile teams. They basically, a lot of them end up being which APIs should be blocking, which ones can be called asynchronously, which one can be combined in a BFF layer and an aggregator layer or a composite layer on the backend. I recently saw a video where Arnav Gupta, I don't know if people know him, really good Android developer, uh, said mobile development is all about UI components, state management, and navigation. Sure, UI looks different, and navigation is also very mobile and web specific. But state management, that's where most of the complexity is. And I mean, we have been doing state management forever, right? Databases. Mobile uses SQLite and SQLite, how you pronounce it. I'm sure most backend engineers or backend leaders can write SQL. Now, let me switch gears here. And in case you're wondering how does Jeet know about these issues? How do I know? And simple, I have made these mistakes. I'm a backend engineer who became an engineering leader, and I was absent for my lone web engineer. Okay, he couldn't understand how he will grow and what future he has in the company, so he left it. And I still thank him for uh, getting me to learn web and take it seriously. If he had not left, I would have just assumed that the senior most guy who I hire would take care of web for me, right? And that's when I said, okay, I also need to pick up Android. I picked up iOS too late. Uh, I joined a team with serious mobile engineering projects. While I didn't always contribute to code reviews and design and coding, but whenever a big feature was there, I could contribute to those designs. I could debug issues with my engineers and also set expectations from stakeholders saying, hey, no, it's not just UI. There is more to it, right? And while I'm not an expert at Android or React Native, I can I think I can find my way around these technologies now. But for the longest period, I ignored this side of things. And that's why I said that I was the absentee leader. Now that I know a bit, not a whole lot, I empathize with my team. Uh, and it is just an accident where I had just one guy who left it. Right? And I still see backend engineering teams with a small mobile engineering pod attached to it, and the engineering leader is even in this setup, the mobile pod is largely ignored. Right? I've tried to change this, and my team, my EMs, I tell them they won't be VP of backend or CTO of backend. In order to grow, they will have to learn mobile. They'll have to empathize with their teams. And I tell the same thing to mobile engineering managers that they will have to pick up some backend to avoid becoming an absentee leader for that team. Now, what can you do? The user is mobile. I agree with Pratul. I was talking to somebody about this, and they said people don't care what microservices and stuff I have or what frameworks I have on the back end. They see my mobile interface and they judge me and my engineering skills based on that. We'll come back to this. What can you do? Are you ready for this? Do you want to know what can you do to not remain an absentee leader? Give me a yes in the chat. Okay, Shiva says yes. Shiva wants to learn mobile immediately. Gaurav, Yash. Okay, thankfully. For a second, I thought nobody was interested in finding out the solution of the problem that I have been enumerating. All right. Nikhil says already running. Thank you, Nikhil. Good job. Do this. Start by talking to your mobile developers. Tell them you want to help. Ask them how you can help. Once you talk to them, I would love it if you tag me on Twitter. I'm on @Jiten Jiten and share your experiences with me on Twitter. That's your homework. Yeah, Shiva wants to add bugs to mobile and not just on backend. Yeah. So start talking to your mobile developers and share your experiences with me on Twitter. Learn some mobile engineering. Build a small app. Okay. Submit it to Play Store. Learn about some mobile best practices. There are a lot of MV Star frameworks for managing large mobile code. Do pair programming with your engineers. I'm sure you do this for backend, and you can do this for mobile too. Participate in code reviews, design reviews, right? And once you feel you are able to be an effective leader, uh, evangelize this, influence rest of the organization, people in your teams who are not here for this call. Um, Tell them about this and see if we can become full stack engineering leaders. Now, I'm sure your mobile developers will be super happy. I have a meme for this on the slide, and I'm hoping this would result into your team designing better products and your customers being more happy because now you're not just doing I do API development and somebody else does mobile development. You're designing a full product. Shiva, you want to go to the next slide? Yeah. Even Elon Musk seems to be learning mobile. What is stopping you? You can do this. Um, Thanks for listening to me, everyone. I would love it if you share your progress. If you are learning mobile, if you picked up a course, if you built your first app, I will be very happy to see it. Talk to me on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Jitain. Happy to take questions now. If not code push, how do you ship OTA? You don't, Saurabh. I don't know any way of shipping OTA. I was just discussing this with Ankit some time ago that code push would remain React Native's superpower, which even the new frameworks like Flutter will not be able to substitute. You can write down your questions on chat. You can also unmute and talk. All right. Hybrid versus native. If you have, um, I would call it a decently large team, decently large budget. a kick-ass talent acquisition team who can spend hours and days, and you need like really, really solid OS uh, performance from Android or iOS, go native. Building a video player, go native. If you want to show a scorecard, use hybrid. Like it's you can mostly write code once. It's not truly mostly write code once, but the whole not having this inconsistency between Android and iOS makes life easy. I've been with teams where we had like one-fourth the number of one-fourth iOS developers than we had Android, and iOS. Of course, we compromised and said, okay, let's not build all the features, and that's probably not good for your customers. So I would invariably choose a hybrid if I can. Sometimes we can't. Yeah, taking a moment to appreciate the PPT skills. Thanks, Kanika. All right. Yeah, I think I answered Piyush's question. What do you think about hybrid? I think I love it. Yeah, Pratul says RN performance on Android is mediocre at best. And and I would agree if you are looking for raw performance, sure. Uh, it's like, for first couple of years, I was doing C++, and year 2002 is when Java 1.2 came or something, and Java became popular, and a lot of my friends who were doing C++ till yesterday started doing Java, and we used to laugh on them. Like, this is so slow. Compilation is slow. Start is slow. The whole latency is so bad. Uh, and I guess who is like who is alive today? Java is everywhere, and C++ is only used by people who are like really, really keen on performance. And I know Pratul is heavily, deeply into performance optimization. Um, the toolchain part, Pratul, may not be as big a pain. You need to do maintain Android, iOS, React Native, and probably that's why Flutter is becoming more and more popular because you don't have to maintain three toolchains now. Yeah. Okay. Mintra, I would not know. I do know some people who do React and React Native in Mintra. So I'm at least some parts are React Native. Pratul might know more. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about server-driven UI. Tuti can that speak to seem to be doing this. I like server-driven UI, Radha Krishna. I think if anything, your team is doing more of it than anybody else in the Indian ecosystem. Um, all right. Then we have Flutter is good.
Jitan,
I
I
encourage.
met two out of three candidates. So uh,
Oh,
in the interviews, it's almost always that everyone says server-driven UI kar rahe hain," right?
for people who don't know, RK heads mobile for mobile engineering for PhonePe, and and yes, the team does do a lot of server-driven UI. Uh, I like it. Probably I would write about it or talk about it someday. Um, so Anand says Flutter is good. I encourage everyone to do on PSC. I haven't learned Flutter yet. I will do it. My team at Cast 24 is doing a couple of POCs. I think they also agree with the Sonan. Flutter is so much easier. If Pratul says it is easier, I agree with it. All right. Okay. Grow uses React Native. Thanks, Aditya, for confirming. There are a lot of Flutter fans here. I don't want this to become Flutter versus React Native, guys. Okay. Uh, all right. Grow moved from React RN to native for Android app. Right. Aditya, can you confirm that? You have Sudhindra, so I'd be surprised if he's not doing Android app. I think you can unmute.
So our app is a brownfield app for Android. We
Mhm.
have both native and React Native in place.
Oh, nice.
I
Okay.
guess the exact number would be around 60% is in native and the 40% is in React Native. And the iOS app is complete React Native.
All right. All right. That explains the confusion too. Thanks, Aditya.
Yeah.
Saurabh says suggestions, resources for server-driven UI in RN. Saurabh, I don't have anything handy right now. If RK has something, we will know. All right. Any question? Any other? I have experienced this. At one point, the org needed feature parity on Android and iOS. It is always lagging to serve customers better than raw performance. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Pratul on raw performance, but I think uh, RN is not RN or Flutter are not that bad, and sometimes feature parity and being able to roll out product faster beats raw performance. Harshvardhan is, I always find server-driven UIs usually some remote config sent as JSON on load data field set. Oh, it always starts like that, Harsh. That's the best way to start, and then iterate from there. All right. There's no competition. Yeah. IPWA to hybrid native. Do you think we can move right based on complexity? PW to hybrid native. Do you think we can move right based on complexity? I use some PWAs, okay, and they're not that bad, but I keep feeling uh, whenever I need this, I would say notifications, a lot of storage, caching. Uh, PWAs start becoming slow. They work only for, I would say, text-based systems for me. It's a good hack to get the mobile app-like experience out, and I would not discourage it. All right. Cold start time for Flutter is slow, but it's been improving with every release. I have no clue. I also heard that Flutter APK size was bigger. I have no experience with Flutter at the moment. Yeah, but looks like it is all set to win hearts. Mobile development is there for good 10, 12 years. Leadership these days, especially in startup, is too young. Still, mobile leadership is absentee. Why? Oh, that's a good question, Piyush. I think it probably stems from the colleges frowning upon any UI projects, whether it is web or mobile, and they want to do AI ML mostly. I think Aditya also tweeted about this. Um, I'm guessing it's that and nothing else. Um though I have no other theories for why young leadership in startups is still not paying as much attention to mobile. I hope it'll change soon.
Yeah,
Okay,
because if
server
you
driven. Go ahead.
add on top of it, because if you see, most of the college projects are either on some web development or some sort of UI, right? Not on core backend. Still, it is not getting that popularity.
Oh, I had a different experience. Only this year when we went to campus, there were people who had already built apps and stuff. But most of the project that I continue to see are AI ML projects or hardcore backend projects. Uh, you're not being evaluated on your UI skills. Maybe you're being evaluated on the backend or AI ML skills. Okay, and Sonam has a good point. Absence of literature is a major reason. The old literature has too much of a head start. No SICP for mobile. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, who do you look up to? You look up to an architect. He's a backend guy. Your professor probably was backend guy. The best books that we keep recommending are like the best book I recommend is Unix Network Programming by R.W. Stevens, and it's a it's a backend thing. So there is it's a very, very good point. Thanks, Sanam. All right. RK has a good story. RK, do you want to share it with public?
Yeah, I mean, this is a story every year. Some 40 to 50 campus recruitment happen every year from different campuses in India. I mean, good campuses in India. So folks are all bright and smart. They come in and then we do our boot camp, and then we randomly assign the teams, right? I mean, some semblance to what their interest might be, but then we don't go about asking which team they want to be part of because nobody chooses app. So we end up, let's say, 10 people for app, 40 or the remaining to backend, and then one by one the folks come back saying, I mean, they go to the HRBP, right? Saying, ma'am, app team is not where I want to be, right? I mean, that's how it starts. And then the voice gets bigger. And then every single time there's a story, I would have to go beg, plead, tell them that this is a good place to be, challenging work, come get a taste of it. Then you would be able to decide 6 months into it. You know, there would still be voices here and there, but then after 6 months, they settle in, they figure out that, yeah, this is not a bad place after all. So yeah, I mean, it's a story every single time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Gaurav, the point I think people do not talk about mobile engineering enough. I agree. I'm hoping that at least this will become a catalyst for some of you guys. At least the React native group is fairly active because of the JavaScript and React behind it. Um, all right. Um, yeah, if anybody wants to talk about mobile engineering best practices, talk to Shiva, um, Pratul, RK, Ankit, reach out to Shiva, man. Okay, it's just time spent. People work on web, mobile, in college as per some project just for small time, but they do a whole courses on compilers. Um, I wouldn't call compilers obsolete, but you're right. We are spending a whole lot of time developing um, command line. At least my first few programs were all C in, C out, or uh, stdio, where I did scanf, printf. So there is some truth in that. All right, Saurav has a good set of recommendation. Hands-on design patterns with React Native. Thanks, Saurav. All right. Okay, if there are no more questions, we will wrap up. Pratul has a good blog post that I want to review, Pratul. And Hirak has recommended building mobile apps, scale engineering ebook. I've heard good things about this one too.
Awesome. Thanks everyone. Thanks Jeet for the talk, and thanks everyone who joined us. Yeah, and please do the homework that Jeet has asked you to do,
Yes,
and
please talk to your
report back.
mobile engineering team and tell me how it changed you.
Okay.
Have a good day,
Thanks
everyone.
everyone. Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, it says several participants left the meeting.